Ladies and gentlemen, what is up? Thank you for joining me. Today is Friday, October 7th, and we're going to go ahead and get right into it. I'm sure you're here today because you want to catch that sweet flat earth debate action that you've heard so much about. So we're going to go through a couple announcements, do a sponsor, and then we'll get right into it. So thank you all for joining me. First off, a special announcement. Wednesday of next week, I believe it's October 12th, we are going to be going live with Flat Earth Dave, the legend himself. So if you'd like to put some questions in to ask the man, feel free to submit it into my email at troublingtribune@gmail.com. Also, I'm going to go ahead and give a huge shout out to the Mellow Dome. We were on their show a few nights ago, so be sure to go and check the full conversation out on their Rockfin. It is free for now to watch, so be sure to catch it before it goes premium. Very fun stuff there. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it, and I'll see you on the other side. Thanks for joining. Have you been spitting facts at your friends who just don't seem to want to wake up? Tired of having conversations, hours long sometimes, just to be followed up with a lame straw man argument or something that you've explained an hour and a half ago? Well, fear no more. Simply direct your friends to truesmacks.com. Not only will they be able to get a delicious, healthy, organic snack, but they will be able to get a morsel of truth at any one of the many resources provided on their resource page. So be sure to go to truesmacks.com to check it out and use your promotion code SKY to get 10% off your total order. So make sure you come correct. Of course, I'm already down to 38. Boo, boo. Nobody wants to debate. Astrophysicists, no. You mean theoretical physicists? What if I was like a theoretical plumber? Jesus. It's all in the Bible. It is true. It is in the Bible. It's on a lot of religions and in cosmology. There's only like one religion that doesn't believe in that, and that is atheism. Or, I'm just kidding, it's not a religion, right? Hemisphere. Gotta break that one down. Yeah, I don't really care because you can put words in whatever, but I'm just saying planet, right? And it's like right there, they're rubbing it in your face. So, hemisphere, I say hemisplane, Atmos plane. We can do this all day. Chuck Norris. Hemis plane and Atmos plane. See, we can do it too. Why are airport runways designed the way they are? Explain. Let's hear what you got. Man, we only got like 19 people in here. Sorry, guys, but I'm probably not going to keep this going if we don't get a bigger audience. So go ahead and share the show, or we're going to go ahead and just try this again another day. Fusion plays is really bad. Fusion wordplay is a really bad argument. That's super funny. Yeah. That's not the end-all, be-all. It's just an observation, of course. Coriolis effect. Well, if you're going to say Coriolis effect, then I would ask why it's so selective, acting on some things but not others. Glenn Verduch. Let's see here. Please explain a lunar eclipse. Zim, yo. So a lunar eclipse happens, I believe, when something blocks the moon, just like a solar eclipse happens when something blocks the sun. Now, is that something the Earth's shadow? I think that's not the case. There's actually video evidence of eclipses happening with both the sun and the moon, both above the nice flat level horizon. So just gotta keep that in mind, right? Why don't you observe the ones that include sphere? because they're put there on purpose. Brainwashing. None of the math adds up for the globe Earth, but it all adds up for a flat Earth. I don't even think the math all adds up for any of us, to be quite frank, but I think it adds up a lot more for a flat Earth, that's for sure. What blocks the sun? That's a great question. What does block the sun if not one of the other celestial bodies, if we can literally see everything in the sky above it, right? Because obviously if there was a lunar eclipse happening or a solar eclipse happening, you wouldn't see both the sun and the moon above the flat Earth, that's for sure. Explain tides? That's actually a good question. I've seen a lot of people completely whiff it on this, but the way that I think tides work is that there's primordial waters underneath the earth, and that they actually come up from time to time and go back down. As to why, probably has something to do with electrostatic forces. We actually do know that the moon does give off at least I think, you know what, don't want to say something completely incorrect and get called a liar, right? But I believe that somebody had documented that the moon had electrostatic forces. But don't quote me on that. We're going to have to do a little bit more research, come back tomorrow a little bit more correct on that particular point. Because we knew it was around over 2,000 years ago. Yeah, nobody's saying that NASA found this. That's a complete straw man argument. Nobody believes that NASA founded that. That's ridiculous. But to say that we knew it 2,000 years ago is ridiculous, because we don't know it now. So how could we have known it 2,000 years ago? Just look at the cosmology that the people had back then. They had flat earth cosmology. All the religions had flat earth cosmology. You cannot find a depiction of a spherical earth in a religious context, or, until, much later. So electrostatic forces can work on a globe Earth doesn't prove the shape. That's right. It doesn't prove it. It's just my explanation of how I think the tides work. Also how I think gravity could work. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the bending of space-time. I think that's ridiculous, to say the least. Explain sunsets without saying it goes into the distance out of our sight. So explain sunsets without explaining the mechanic of sunsets, with the added bonus of atmospheric refraction. Got it. Now I'm not going to do that. The fact that you can see the sun and the moon during a solar eclipse adds up if the moon is blocking the sun. That's, that totally adds up. That checks out. 1958 Encyclopedia explains it all. They tell the truth then. Possibly. I'm not super privy on all those. I know it mentions dome a few times, but some people think that, it's also been said that dome is just a geological description, so I don't want to, fall too much into that. Why doesn't that check out? If one of those objects is blocking the other object, then you wouldn't see both of the objects. It's, very, very simple, actually. So you just think of like how an eclipse is explained on a globe Earth model. You let's pretend one of my fists is like, we got the sun here, and then we got the moon here, and then we got the Earth beneath it, right? Or to our perspective, we would just see one of those celestial bodies due to the angular size and position. However, the fact that the eclipse is happening and we're seeing both like the moon over here and the sun way over here, obviously means that these objects are not blocking each other's view from us. Electrostatic forces have a short range. Show some documentation, and then probably show an area that doesn't have electrostatic forces around it. Current pole. Nice. Appreciate you doing that. I didn't realize the mods could do that. That's awesome. Silliness. Well, come in and debate it, bro. Probably can't, though. You probably don't have 1,000 followers because you're not popular enough. But that's okay. Not everybody can do this. Likes traveling from 2 points. Add for a time traveled for a curve, not a straight line. Please demonstrate. Hop in the box. If you have a claim that sounds reasonable, I'd love to see it demonstrated. Mr. Bedazzle, how's that scaled down model challenge coming? I've kind of put it on the back burner for now, to be quite honest with you, because I don't have good cameras and good equipment and kids that always like to mess with things. So I'm not really the modeling type of dude, just shooting you straight with it. I'm not saying that I'll never do it, but I still think that it can possibly be done, but I just kind of put it on the back burner. I've actually kind of put everything on the back burner. If you haven't noticed, I haven't done a live in like 3 weeks, so I do apologize for. Uh, I shouldn't really apologize, but hey, what are you gonna do, right? We all need time. What about the flat Earth documentary where they literally disproved the flat Earth? Well, that's a terrible argument. So now you're going off of evidence presented in movies. My goodness, how weak. I know that globe believers don't need to be that desperate, right? I mean, you guys got some proof, right? I mean, Globey McGlobeface was just doing some like Southern Flights times. How come nobody's brought that up? And why do I have to like bring up points for you? Can't you just circumnavigate the same parallel in both hemispheres to prove your model? Well, the people who have, let's go ahead and mention the Antarctic race. They actually have the mileage clocked at like over 33,000 miles. It's like, why would you need to go that far to circumnavigate Antarctica that's only supposedly, a continent that's 14,000 miles? Just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But hey, maybe I'm misunderstanding something, right? You just want to talk about yourself. Tides are the elongated of Earth. I'm confused on that one. I do feel like I'm talking to myself, though. Nobody wants to jump in the box even just for a little bit. I know it's a short live, guys, but we can still have fun with it, right? Guy gave an argument with Sigma Octantis and how the stars rotate the opposite on what's to debunk. Well, they don't rotate the opposite direction. The stars rotate from east to west. And that's no matter where you're at on Earth. So it's just a matter of perspective. But again, as far as like, wow, we could all see that one particular point, don't have the 100% explanation on that. I'll just say that it can be possible that the magnetic declination is different than what we've been told, and that people are looking a slightly different way than they think. It's also possible that maybe it's some sort of reflection. I've heard people tossing that around, although reflection I have a little bit harder time getting behind, just to be honest, because again, then you have to start explaining what the reflection is off of, and then it's like, okay, well, we can assume a dome, and things like that, but it's just, the whole point is to try to get away from pseudoscience as much as possible, so try to just get to the stuff that we can verify, right? Globe model was invented in the 1500s. I think that's quite possible. Is the moon flat? I mean, who knows? Who cares what the moon is, right? I mean, it certainly looks like a sphere. If you don't believe in anything that the government tells us, why should we believe NASA? Good point. People think that NASA is like this private non-government type thing, and I just don't really see it. I don't really see it like that. They got their orders from the top, right? They got their marching orders. They got, classifications, security clearances, and all that good stuff, right? What else do we got here? Freemasons and Jesuits invented the globe. Yeah, there's tons of really weird numbers with it. There is an argument to be made, though, that the numbers are used because because they are sacred geometry and things like that. I definitely think it's interesting, all the coincidences, though. People will never, ever prove it. I mean, it seems to measure flat. So if people take things dropping in the distance a little bit because of angular size as proof of the curvature, but I just don't really see it that way. Let's see, what else do we got here? If there's any landmass on the outer ring, you just go through the middle. I'm confused on that, guys. Nobody wants to jump in the box. Nobody wants to present a point, make a claim. Maybe just talk about flat Earth for a little bit. We could definitely do that as well. Why can't the southern hemisphere see the North Star? Perspective. The ceiling drops towards the floor raises towards the ceiling, and it meets at a point way closer than what the geometric horizon would be, even if it was a ball, apparently. All the evidence, it's obviously flat. Obviously. Just look around, guys. When did you become a flat earther? I think I started looking into it in 2014, and I was comfortable calling myself a flat earther in like 2015. So one of the first things I did was go out and try to debunk it because I actually did fairly well in earth space science. So, it was often the land of woo, if you will, and they give you all these theoretical things. But hey, you learn all that. We all went through the same indoctrination, education, if you will. So it's always good to challenge your personally held beliefs, regardless of what they are. So if they lost technology, how to go back to the moon, but they have technology to go to Mars. Yeah. I'm still waiting for that Artemis launch. I did a challenge for globe earthers to take a bet, and I know why. Of course, nobody took it. They would have lost because it's been 3 launch windows now. Excuse me, 3 launch windows. Absolutely no, absolutely no launch from the Artemis. They still can't go to the moon. So the Globers cannot say that, oh, we're about to go, right? That remains to be seen. Let's actually hold. I wouldn't recommend anybody hold their breath over it, but hey, to each their own, right? Appreciate the roses. Thanks a ton. I'm really not even sure how to access the gifts. Okay, and didn't mean to do that. Oops. So you're just denying the DART mission. Explain the DART mission so that I could, think about it, research it. Are you a vampire? Nah. Just have ridiculous canines. When it launches, you'll say CGI. Probably. We'll see how good of a job they do, right? Have you been to Cape Canaveral on a launch? I have not been to Cape Canaveral on a launch, but I live in Lakeland, Florida. I can literally see the launches from my backyard most of the time anyway. So, I mean, I've definitely seen launches, but they all angle out, guys. They go up, and then they curve, and they go back down into the sea, I think. No one flat earther can explain a sunset the way it's observed. Rob Skiba, do some research on him. Rest in peace. I think he did a fairly decent job of explaining it. Uh, the atmosphere is indeed acting like a lens, and when you use a lens, you can replicate a sunset. Stars rotate clockwise in the south and anti-clockwise in the north. About the 100th time I've heard this. The stars rise in the east and they set in the west, and it doesn't matter where you're at on the earth. That's just the way they go. So any apparent change in direction is simply due to perspective. Satan is with you. Thank you. DART mission is a joke. For those who don't know, Satan actually, you trace the etymology back, it actually means truth and like every variation of it. So just keep that in mind. Words can be important. This is not an accurate map for those who are wondering. Where's New Zealand on it? I don't even know. But yeah, that's just a graphic. So, which by the way, worked pretty hard on that. Took me all of 5 minutes to make that. So, hope y'all enjoy it. All right, I gotta scroll down. I have 34 messages not read. Eclipses again. We've already explained eclipses earlier. I'm gonna post the full live, guys. For those who are interested, I'm gonna post this full live over to my YouTube channel. So if you're just coming in late, you can catch the full conversation there tomorrow when I post it. At what point does perspective change and why? Perspective is constantly changing based on your position, relative position. As to why that is, how would I even explain that? It's just an obvious fact, right? Like I'm going to move my phone over here. You see how my position changed? I'm going to move it over here. My position changed. It's just the facts of reality. Truth snowflakes. Hey, man.
What's up?
How's it going? Thanks for joining the show.
I have a question for you real quick about the North Star.
Excellent.
Because I've been to Africa, and I've stood 20 miles north of the equator and seen the North Star. And then I traveled 20 miles south of the equator, and I could no longer see the North Star. And on most flat Earth maps I've seen, that part of Africa is nowhere close to the imaginary dome you guys pretend, so refraction wouldn't play a part in that. So tell me why I can see the North Star
Excellent.
20 miles north of the equator, and then I go 20 miles south and I can't see it anymore if we live in a flat Earth, because I still should be able to see it
That's an
20
excellent
miles south of that.
question, Truth Hurts. I would, you probably should have just ended with the question instead of asserting something that was obviously wrong. So at 20 miles, before I answer the question, 20 miles north of the equator, right? How low on the horizon do you see that North Star?
It doesn't matter where it's at on the horizon.
No, I'm just asking you, how low on the horizon do you see it?
I didn't take an accurate measurement of how low on the horizon.
But it's low, right? It's not high up in the air, right? Obviously not.
Well, I mean, it depends on what you're looking. I mean, it was above the moon.
So, like, let's compare it to like the horizon. Would you say it's like above 45 degrees up from that, like halfway up, more
Probably
toward?
60, probably 65 degrees above if you're looking at a protractor. 65. If I'm looking at the ground and I look up with a protractor, 65 degrees.
So, like this or higher,
Like probably right about there.
right about there. So, follow it straight out. You're saying from 20 miles north of the equator, you can see it right there in Africa.
Yep.
I'm gonna need to see
And
some
then I traveled.
documentation because everybody else says it's going to be on the horizon over there.
Well, I mean, it depends on where you're at and where you're sitting, where you're standing at.
Specifically, where you're talking about the equator is the point where the North Star is like pretty much on the horizon. And the reason why you can't see it when you go past that point, and this is on both models, by the way, this is not contingent on flat Earth. On a globe model, the reason why you can't see it is because it goes beyond the curve of the Earth, due to, regardless of how you want to say it, due to perspective obstruction. But the thing is that if it's a flat Earth and we can agree that perspective is a thing, that do we agree that things drop towards the horizon the further away they get from you?
Yes.
Okay. So just take that concept and expand it out. The star starts off when you're, far in the north, it's right above you. The further towards the equator you get, the more towards the horizon it gets due to simple perspective because you're getting further away from the star and it's getting further away from you.
But
So then at a certain
but with
point,
but it,
it gets to the vanishing point. It actually gets to where it is no longer able to resolve from the horizon line. And so that's why you can no
but
longer see the star from that point forward.
but on
Except
a
for in
flat
certain
Earth, where would
conditions, which actually does debunk the model. In certain conditions, you actually can see the North Star from south of the equator, which is very, very interesting. So that's only possible on a flat Earth. It's not possible on a globe Earth.
well, here's the thing on a flat Earth model, where would your North Star be?
In the north, it's where all the stars are rotating around.
It'd be above the North Pole, right? Your center, the
Yeah,
center of your flat Earth map.
that's correct.
So if it's above the center, and the Earth is flat with no curvature, I should be able to see it anywhere.
So are you not taking into account the fact that things drop regardless of if it's flat or spherical?
Well, they wouldn't drop on a flat Earth.
So you're
That's
saying
the
that
thing.
so hold on. Have you ever taken an art class before?
No, I'm
Okay.
not an artist.
So it's understandable why this can be confusing. It's totally all right. So I actually have taken a high school art class. It's at this level that they teach you this, and it's not very hard at all. It's just a way to like draw the way that things would look that are further away. And basically, what you do is if you have a horizon that's the center of the page, if you have, let's take for example an airplane. An airplane would stay at a certain altitude, correct? Let's just say for math's sake that it stays at 500 kilometers, whatever, doesn't matter.
Okay.
If it's at 500 kilometers directly above me, we see it right there. It stays at 500 kilometers, but goes 10 miles forward. Did it drop towards the horizon due to perspective?
Did it drop towards the horizon due to perspective?
Yes, because it got further away. If I was to draw that out, wouldn't I draw that airplane lower on the page and smaller to show that it had gone further away?
Yeah, but the airplane's moving in the sky. The North Star's not. If it's
Your
fixed,
position, so regardless of either in the example, the airplane's moving, right? But let's just take, for example, you moving on the Earth. Your position is
yes.
different relative on the Earth. Is this
Not if
making
it's flat.
sense?
not if the Earth is flat, it would be a flat Earth. Then
It
there
would
would
be.
be no. It would be flat, right? If the Earth
Yes.
was flat,
Yes.
and I walk away from the North Star, and it's fixed in the sky above your guys' North Pole, right? Whatever the North Pole is on the flat Earth map, right? It's fixed
Right.
in the sky up, right? As I walk further south, that North Star would get smaller, but there's nothing to block it to make
It would.
it move in
So
the
you're
sky because it's
missing.
fixed.
So the thing that you're missing, like, yes, the North Star. Let's pretend, even though I don't think it's literally fixed, I think it does a tight little circle, possibly. But I digress. Let's just say, for all intents and purposes, that it's completely fixed, right? Even if it is fixed, as you move away from it on a flat Earth, and you know this because we draw this on flat pieces of paper. This is literally how we draw perspective. Things that are further away at the same exact altitude appear to drop. So it will appear lower than the thing that is closer to you, but at the same altitude. Same exact altitude. Like, here's another, I can prove it right now. Hold on. Let me see if I can do it right here. Just move it back, same level, and because of perspective, it starts to drop. It's very, very, very simple. It happens
Yeah,
regardless of the shape that we live on, except for on a globe, it happens even more
but
dramatic.
but it wouldn't drop completely out of view on a flat Earth where you couldn't see it at all in the southern hemisphere.
No, you wouldn't be able to see. So you take a room and you extend it out miles and miles, you just can't see forever. Though eventually the sky merges with the floor, but that doesn't literally merge with the floor. That's just what it looks like. There's things past that. It's just not resolving because I'm trying to think of the exact word that they use. It's something to do with angles. I'm sorry, I'm butchering it. Somebody in the comment probably knows. But basically,
Yeah, but the
the
sun
angle doesn't
would
resolve.
never set on the horizon in a perspective of appearing to drop closer to the horizon because of distance. It would not set. It wouldn't go beyond the horizon.
So people have literally demonstrated this. I'm not sure why you would say it's simply the angle of incidence. You can literally model it in the computer. You just draw a straight line from the sun, have the sun go a straight line. You'll literally see the angle drop and drop and drop and drop and drop and drop and drop. Even though the sun is at the exact same altitude, it's been modeled on a computer. So I'm not sure how you can
Sure,
say
but
that it just wouldn't set.
it'll never go
Okay,
negative.
I gotta go
That's
because I'm
why
with my
it
kids.
can
But
only do that on a
Thanks for
round
coming
Earth.
on.
yep.
The concept that the Earth is flat is just, I mean, it's nonsense on so many levels.
I'd love to hear some evidence.
Sure. Let's take the fact that you can triangulate from the Earth to stars that are relatively close and determine their distance by
Right.
your position relative to the sun during different times of the year.
Yes, that also
Okay.
works on a flat Earth. In fact,
No, it doesn't.
you can't
No,
do
it doesn't.
don't let me speak because I'll let you speak. So you're talking about celestial navigation, correct?
No, no, I'm not talking about that at all. I'm talking about cosmology.
You were just talking about triangulating.
No, I'm talking about triangulating our position from one side of the sun, where we are at, let's say, in the summer, to where we are relative to the sun in the winter, and looking at our position and looking out at stars that are relatively close, and then determining their distance by the difference in the angles.
So to make it even simpler, you're saying that because of the difference in the because you're measuring it from the sun, our position relative to the sun in space, correct?
When we orbit the sun, our position changes. We are 91 million miles away from the sun. So, from where we are right now to 6 months from now, will be 182 miles, 182 million miles
And how do you know this?
different in location. How do we know this? We've measured our distance to the sun easily.
How did we
That's been
measure?
easy to determine.
So if it's easy, how did we measure
So,
our distance to the
and
sun?
again, what you're missing the point here is that because we're on one side of the sun at one
No, the
point of the year,
point.
and on
Well,
the other
before
side
we
of the sun,
I'm sorry. I'm trying not to cut you off too much,
you're,
but you're
I,
just.
I didn't
I'm
cut you off, so please extend the same courtesy. Okay. At one part of the year, and we're on one side of the sun, as we orbit it, we go to the other side of the sun. And because we're on the other side of the sun, and the distance to the sun is about 91 million miles, that
But how
puts
do you
us at
know
about
that
100.
measurement?
Thank
That
you.
puts us at 182 miles difference.
How do you know
And
that measurement?
because we're that far difference in location, we can look at stars and notice that there's a difference in our angular position to that star, and therefore triangulate to how far that star is away from Earth.
So that's basically Einstein's theory of relativity, where,
That has nothing to do with Einstein's
well,
general theory of
you
relativity.
know how that theory works, right? Like how it's from
Oh
the
yes,
observer's
which one?
point.
The general theory of relativity or special theory of relativity? Which one are you asking about? Did you go away? I guess you lost audio.
Einstein. So, no, I'm here. So how Einstein literally, tried to, like, it's kind of like weird because it's from the observer's point of view on how he explained it in his book. So, for
No, you're
instance,
talking about relativity.
yeah,
No,
so,
we're not
sorry.
talking about relativity. This is just basic mechanics. This is, in fact, just basic Newtonian mechanics and celestial mechanics long before Einstein's theory of general or special relativity. This far preceded them. We were able to look at and understand our position, the fact that the Earth orbited the sun and not the sun orbiting the Earth, long before Einstein was ever born.
Of course. Sure, if that's belief. But you know, so what you're basing your argument on is the fact that everything that you've ever been taught is absolutely 100% correct, right? Like
No,
that's
it's not a
fact.
question of whatever. No, everything I've been taught is not necessarily 100% correct. We have theories, we have
Well, everything.
knowledge as we know it, we have evidence as we know it, but often we encounter new evidence and new ideas. And sometimes the theories that we have to set aside
But
or
everything is
modify
theory,
based
though.
on new evidence. And that's how science works.
Yes, everything.
Everything has been taught in
Is,
school.
yes,
That's why
yes.
they have experiments with all that stuff. Maybe history, maybe like social studies and stuff like that. But science, they do experiments in classes. They show you things. They're not just shoving it in your throat.
Actually, as far as school experiments, I think that's the biggest joke to peer review I've ever seen. They literally tell you to dismiss evidence that goes contrary to the expected theory, to the expected result. So I'm
Exactly.
not going to
I don't know
rely.
what you're talking about. I've never heard any such thing in science
Yeah, I
class
heard
that
it
I
in
have
Because
every
ever
science class
doctrine,
I've
went to
ever
or
been in.
taught.
I've literally heard
your
it in every
And,
single one.
and
But
where did you study science?
in high school,
me,
In high
me,
school. Okay. Did you study science in college?
it doesn't matter. That's an appeal to
Sure, it
yes,
matters.
authority.
Sure, it
yes.
matters. It matters dramatically.
It's an
There
appeal
are
to authority.
discrepancies in
So let's
experiments
talk about someone who
and
does have the mathematics, who
methods.
disagrees with you, who does have the degree. Are you familiar with George Ellis?
Oh, I have a degree. I
Awesome.
have a
Are
degree
you
in
familiar with
science.
George Ellis?
No, I
Okay,
have a
he's a
degree
famous
in science.
cosmologist
In
who said
fact, I taught at Georgia Tech.
he said in
I was on the
19,
faculty of the Georgia Institute of Technology.
1997,
I worked at
he
NASA
said,
in mission control.
I can
Okay.
construct for you, based on the observations, a, a symmetrical, sorry, a symmetrical universe with Earth at its center, and you cannot disprove it based on the observations. You can only
You can
dismiss
go
it
Oh,
to
on
yes, you can.
philosophical
Well,
means.
I don't care. He
And
may
a
have
lot of
said
hold
that,
on,
but it's
and a
bullshit.
lot of cosmology tries to hide the fact that they're picking their model based on philosophical means. And to prove that he was telling the truth, if you look back at, I believe it was Edwin Hubble, who said, based on the observations, the observations he said looks like it's Earth at the center. However, this is an unwelcome presupposition and must be avoided at all cost. And he also, mind you, said that it was horrid. So these science is not unbiased, and they are picking their model based on philosophical means. So to simply say that
That's funny because you didn't
it's just basic
understand
physics, it's just
Hubble's
basic
perspective.
mechanics, flies in the face of people who are probably much smarter than us, who have worked out the mathematics and says it can go either way.
No, you're wrong. I've done the mathematics, okay, and you're wrong. And Hubble,
Sure.
what he said was based on redshift, okay.
Hundreds
Well,
and
your
hundreds
argument's
and
not very
thousands of scientists.
convincing.
That's a theory, but everything's
Yeah.
a theory of NASA and all that science jazz. It's all theories.
I'm not
Because they're
misrepresenting what
humble.
Hubble
Everything's
said
a
at
theory.
all,
That's
Beast
all
Boy.
right. So what if it's a theory? The bottom line is we look at,
There's not
we
a fact
gather
behind it.
evidence, and then we test the theories with experiments.
How about the
And
light
Begging the
experiment?
question fallacy. This man doesn't know it.
I have to agree with Esquity. I mean, if he's also having, done the research, done the work, so have I. You talk about school. I mean, I've gone to school for 6 years to be an astrophysicist. I've done the work. I've been in school doing the experiments. I mean, I'm just confused by your narrative that you pick and choose these words that
So,
are scientific, but then you don't
so what
have
I don't think. I'm sorry to
basis
cut you
in
off,
it.
but
I mean, I
why are you cutting them off? Let them
because I
yeah, I
talk.
know
don't
his
want to be
point, and it's
interrupted,
not. He's
please.
just
I'm
saying the
trying
same
to.
point
Well, I
again.
don't know his point,
So
and I want to hear it.
he's
I
no,
want
he's
to
I'm
just
hear
trying
his
to
just
say the
point.
saying
same
I'm
point
agreeing
again.
that
Basically, the
you
reason
talk
I want to
why
about
hear his point.
to answer
you
his
talk about
question.
people doing you talk about this man that you just mentioned, but you have other people such as myself, such as Esquity, who have done the work. We've done years and years of doing these
You've done
experiments, like
begging
you
the
say, which are
question.
not are
Breadcrumbs.
not proven, but they are evidence based. Why do we have experiments? We have specific experiments that prove
Do
theories.
you
We
want an
don't just
explanation, or
randomly
do you
come
just want
up
to
with these experiments. These experiments are
talk forever?
based on actual evidence. You can look up, I know gravity is a huge thing for you guys. Look up the Cavendish
So we're not
experiment.
going to get to address
Very
anything that you're
easily
saying.
talks about gravity, but your other stuff. And I want to go back to what Esquity was talking about,
Gravity
finding the
holds
distance
water.
to stars. He was talking about parallax. You can look up parallax. I know exactly what he's talking about. That is something that you can prove by looking at the distance when he was talking about triangulation. That just look up parallax. You
So
can look
have
it up. It's this thing.
any
It's a
one of
thing
you
that we've
an
had
astronaut?
forever.
Are
It's
you an
not
astronaut?
something to do with relativity. It's not with these fancy words we want to say. It's just basic mechanics.
So,
It's basic
Proto,
trigonometry.
Exactly. And
if
it
I
would
can,
not work if the earth was
it has
flat and the
Yes,
sun
because it
was
has
some
to
little
rotate
light,
around the sun.
rotating around the center of the flat
Proto,
earth
guys,
with
you
a
have to look
dome
at
over
why
it, some
why
stupid
they
concept
believe in
like
flat
that.
Earth.
I'm just really
It's not because
confused
of the
how
it's
people
not
who
because
believe
of
in
the
flat
science.
Earth choose these narratives. You pick
So
small
the
things
reason
to pick
the
out of
reason they do it,
papers that
the
you think you
reason they do
understand,
it is
and
to
then you create a narrative that fits what you're trying to say, but you are not considering a large swath of other research. You talk about this guy who's talking about Hubble. You're mentioning Hubble. Yeah, he did research on cosmic expansion. But you're just so
Oh God.
perfectly picking points that support
proto.
your
He's
argument,
only
but
trying to
are
make you open your eyes that you've basically been indoctrinated to all this.
I
No,
have not been
listen.
indoctrinated.
It's
I'm
Yeah.
funny.
confused how
Yes,
you
you
think
have.
I've been
It's funny that
So
they
indoctrinated when I've done the
it's
work
funny that
okay,
myself,
y'all
but you're
bring up
just listening to some
I've
science.
guy
let
on
y'all go on
TikTok.
now for over 5 minutes. Are you done?
Yeah, I'm
No,
done.
I
I'm
haven't
just
even
curious what you're
started.
going to retort with.
Okay, perfect. Because I love how many times you said I've done the work, I've done the work, and mind you, I don't want to take anything away from what you guys have done, because I know that going to school is a lot of hard work. Just because I got most of my education from high school doesn't mean I didn't attend college, just didn't graduate. I got very disillusioned in school because it was just ridiculous how much the teachers didn't
Just
care
couldn't
and how they
cut it.
didn't want to teach you anything. I'm not saying all colleges are like that, but to say that you guys know that it can only be this one way, and you know that it can only be this one way because of the experiments that you've done, I would just challenge to say that a lot of the experiments that you guys do don't actually isolate all the variables, for one.
How would
Both
you
of
know what
them are
experiments we've
begging the
done?
question fallacies. In other words, you assert first, well, the Earth
How
is a
would you
globe,
know
the
what
Earth is a globe,
experiments
and
we've
therefore,
done and
because the
what
experiments that you guys talk
variables
about
we've
are
isolated or not? You have no clue what we've done.
Yeah, I know that people smarter than you
Told
say
us.
that there's actually multiple models that can explain the observations, not just flat Earth and globe Earth, but multiple, a
Flat Earth doesn't
range of
explain shit.
models. And
What,
it's
like
using,
triangular Earth,
all right,
square Earth?
so
Like, where are we getting here?
let's do
What
this.
other models?
Well, what about the James Webb Telescope? Um,
Okay. What
like,
about it?
how,
Yeah,
how do
explain to
you
us how
explain
satellites
that?
work in your flat Earth model.
Oh, I don't even, that's going
Satellites.
to be interesting to hear.
Oh,
Yeah, they just
how
launch
about
them
when
up
they
with
shot
balloons.
a meteor? Did you see that footage?
Balloons? Balloons? You didn't say balloons, did you?
Yeah, and we got
Yes,
Really?
video of it.
NASA
Satellites
used
are in the
balloons to
sky
launch
with
satellites.
Balloons?
balloons?
Literally video of
Oh
it.
They use
my
more
God.
helium than anyone on the planet. NASA. They use balloons to launch satellites. That's a
Weather
fact.
balloons?
They
What?
do not
I'm
Oh
confused.
gosh.
launch
I am so
satellites with
confused.
weather
Yes, they
balloons.
do. Yes,
No,
they
they
do.
don't.
Yes,
Squiddy,
they
You
do.
have
hey,
worked at
I've never
NASA.
heard
last
That's
that
point.
before.
I'm
nonsense.
moving on. I
Of
got another
course.
guest in the
No.
box.
Yeah,
So
that's
anything
You're
right.
else you
You
want to
better.
say?
specific.
I'll blow you
I
out of
do
the
want to
water.
say, last thing, I am sorry that your school experience was not good for you. I'm sorry that you feel that teachers
He
disillusion you. I
obviously
really,
couldn't
truly
make the
do.
grades.
I'm honestly saying that.
I
I'm
can
I'm
sorry
sorry.
appreciate
that
that.
the education
Go back
system
to school and
failed
get an
you.
education.
Really
Like,
see what
I
from
wish
you.
that
You don't
school
know
We
was
don't
anything at
better.
dis.
I
all.
agree there's plenty of problems wrong with the education system, but these experiments are done by high school students all across the world. They're done by scientists, done by
Which
experts.
Do you
They're
know what a
provable,
scientist
and
is?
I know what you're talking about with the variable things. You know, you're not going to show a high schooler relativity to explain Cavendish. You can't just show like that to somebody that has no
so
idea.
what you're
But the
best.
Cavendish experiment, look it up, do it yourself. I really implore you to do these yourself. And you
So
know what? If you find something different, then please publish it.
here's
But
the
I
thing,
guarantee you will not find something different.
Protostar. Here's the thing.
Proto.
We only publish the results that affirm the model. And when it doesn't work, we simply do the experiment again. I've done the Cavendish. I've done this in
My
high
friend,
school.
that's not how that
It's
works. I know what
literally
you're
how it
talking
works.
about, but that is how modern science works. When you're talking about Newton, Einstein, those guys back then, we had an
So,
entirely different review board of
Protostar,
how we review stuff. It's super hard to publish stuff.
can
I
I ask
want you to
you,
know.
can I ask you, when doing experiments, you're saying that when you get a result that doesn't go with the expected model, that you don't throw out the result and do the experiment again?
If I don't get the result I was expecting, I throw it out. Is that what you're asking? Just to
It's not
re-understand. I want
just
to make
that.
sure I'm getting what you're saying.
When you do an experiment and you don't get the result that you were expecting, you throw out the result and you do the experiment again. And you repeat the process until you get the expected results a couple times in a row.
That's just, yeah, okay, sure. I understand what you're saying. That's just how data works. You have to do something multiple times.
So,
That's in any science. Not let's not even talk about space. I mean, that's in literally every form of science. It's in psychology, it's in engineering. You have something called outliers.
So why
You
do
have a
rockets
trend that
arch when they launched?
matches. But if you do the
The gravity
experiment over
throws us around.
1,000 times, I'm sure, of course, you're going to get some because there's error. I'm sure you know what error is. There's
yeah,
always going to be error in science because
Yes,
it's
yes. Didn't
usually
they try to
human
do
led.
something on Mars?
that,
Supposedly they crashed
so,
by zero. Yeah.
But we have more, as science has evolved, we've developed better instruments for, actually calculating all of this stuff. I know that there can be error in human experimentation, but you do have instruments that actually show these values with such a high level of approximation that there's visibly no error included.
so am I going to guess that you also do not know who George Ellis is?
No, I've never heard of George Ellis. You're right.
So the reason why flat earthers in general, by and large, just to like kind of help you like maybe reach us a little bit so you can understand where we're coming from. Although we fully acknowledge that most of us have not gone through the rigors of the college mathematics to prove out each and every individual claim of the globe Earth model. I'll be one of
Okay.
the,
Sure.
hopefully I'm not one of the first to admit that. That's just a fact.
Sure.
Most
Okay.
people are not willing to put in the work, right? But
Right.
when we talk about people who And is there any disagreement that in the mainstream world, like when it comes to like mainstream things, that anything that can be politicized is politicized?
I would say from a philosophical stance, yes, everything can be politicized.
Okay. So with that in mind, it's like there's always a narrative being pushed. And so that's why
Okay.
we like to scrutinize things. So we're not given all of the information. We're led through teachers who probably don't know any better
Thank you.
because they were also led in a certain way. And not to say that that in itself is necessarily proof against it, but it certainly isn't proof that that's the only way something can be done. George Ellis is a great person to bring up because he is a globe earther. He's a famous cosmologist. He wrote in a Scientific American. He wrote a journal called Thinking Scientifically, Acting Globally. And in
Mm-hmm.
this, he fully explained, and he didn't say it was a bad thing, mind you. So please don't take me out of context or anything in saying that he was demonizing cosmology because he wasn't.
I'm not. I'm staying with you. I'm listening.
Right. It's for the audience as well. All he was saying was that I can construct for you a spherically symmetrical universe with Earth at its center, and you cannot disprove it based on the observations. Now, what he meant by observations, obviously, he means the mathematics in those observations because that is the language behind the observations that we see. So we don't have to make a wall, draw a line that he meant something different. We know what he meant. He's a scientist.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that he could construct this and you could not disprove it based on the observations, but you could only dismiss it based on philosophical grounds, which is feelings. And what he meant by that was exactly what Hubble was talking about when he was talking about we disregard the idea that we're the center of the universe or any special position in the universe simply because science doesn't deal with the question of because if there's a special place, then somebody probably put us here, and science doesn't even deal with that. So to keep things in the realm of what science can actually deal with, they choose to go with the model on modesty grounds that allows them to continue to explore the cause and effect relationships of things all the way up as close to what you would call God or whatever, the creative force that you can. So they chose, this is me steel manning the argument, they chose the model because it felt better, not because the observations and mathematics supported it. There's a whole other set of mathematics that can be used to explain the observations, and not just one set. According to George Ellis, there's multiple sets. He says there's a range of models that can explain the observations. So when we
So
have people,
what are those mathematical equations, though?
what's that?
Where are those mathematical equations that he's talking about? Because numbers don't lie.
I be honest with you, I haven't sat down and worked all that stuff out, but I know that there are different models of the universe that have been presented, and that you can go and
Okay.
dig in and find mathematics to it. You'll actually be
Sure.
surprised to find that there's a whole other set of physics, like local physics, that we were using prior to the 1900s that, by and large, for the most part, still works very, very well. And the new physics is introduced really to explain cosmological errors that we have with the crisis in cosmology, if you will. They're trying to still work that out, why the gravity isn't working the exact way that it should, because of all the mass in the universe doesn't equal out to the gravity that we're seeing. So that's why they then invented dark matter to go with that to explain it.
Well, okay. Yeah, okay. I just want to digest all you said. Yeah, I think it's totally fine to have skepticism. I mean, that is in some way science. I mean, you should have a healthy amount of skepticism, but that is what science is. I know there are plenty of people who are in high school who, get told things and they just get told by their teachers, but they go along their lives and that's fine. But people like me and like the guy who was previous with us, we've had that healthy amount of skepticism and want to learn more. So we go to college, we do the experience ourselves. I do research, I do these things, I do observation, I do theoretical cosmology. I know a lot of what you're mentioning. But see, the thing is that you have to, you know, you can generally accept things sometimes. I know. I mean, let's say you do need skepticism, and I agree. You shouldn't accept everything as fact. But my problem here is that there are plenty of people like myself and others who have done this work. We peer review each other. We have to peer review. I just
Ask
recently
skeptical.
had a paper published, and it takes years. It really doesn't take a short amount of time. We do the experiments. You have to replicate the data. You can't just get a set of data and say, looks good. You have to do it yourself. You really do.
Star,
That's why all those papers are so detailed
that
and
point that you just
explain every
made,
step.
I
But
want to, I want
that's where I'm struggling here,
I
is
have
that
to,
you
just for a
can't
second.
choose
Hey, seriously, for a
one
second,
paper.
the point that you just made about the papers, I'm sure that that might be true for, maybe it's different for certain branches of science, but there was literally a crew that went and proved that, at least when it comes to the gender and psychological field, the rigors that you are talking about are absolutely not present. They
My
blat-
friend, they are present, at
well,
least
they
in the
blatantly
field of
admitted.
physics
Let
and
me hold
cosmology.
on. Oh,
Like what you're concerned with for your, you know, what we're talking about, flat Earth, mechanics,
Does anyone
physics,
else feedback?
cosmology, astronomy, those are very peer reviewed. Very, very, very peer reviewed. We have a whole system in place that has to review that. You go to boards, they talk about it. Like,
but
it is not
they
something you
literally,
cannot just publish a paper.
everything that
You
you're
can't.
It's
saying
hundreds
has
of
been.
years of science. It's not just like a couple of decades. We're talking about hundreds of years of science here that people have been studying throughout just everything, and it all lines
Guys,
up.
it has nothing to do with
So
their lack of information or that they don't have access to the information that we all have access to. What I've gathered from, for the most part, from flat earthers is that they're more conspiracy theorists than they are flat earthers. The flat Earth model actually, it coincides more with their conspiracy theories. So in essence, a flat earther, it's more like a badge on their assortment of conspiracy theories. They're not looking at the information. They're not looking at the science. They seriously just want to stay in conspiracy theory world. That's it. That's all they want.
No, you
Nice
guys, hey,
add on.
Dr. Nate, that's all you want. Your narrative
We're having trouble hearing you, Tom Fish.
figures.
It has nothing
I'm
to
gonna
do
go
with.
out and then let me back in, all right?
All right, you got it. Yeah, I think it's really funny
They
people who accuse flat earthers of just not wanting to do the work, because I've seen flat earthers be on the front of a lot of experiments and pushing
Yeah,
the
I don't want to
pushing
give anything. I'm just saying
against
that
the
I've noticed
known
a lot of
narrative,
a lot.
which is
well, it's
exactly
kind
what
of on
science
both
is supposed
sides
to do.
there.
Science is
Kind of on
supposed
I
both
to
don't mean to
sides. Some
constantly
accuse.
people don't
challenge
do the
itself.
science. Some people do the science.
I don't mean to accuse you specifically, but I have heard a lot of flat earthers. You just lay back and you just hear all of them talk, and they usually dip a little bit into flat Earth, but they mostly go into conspiracy theories. They go into Russia, they go into Biden, they go into all kinds of stuff
Well, it's
that
all
has nothing to
connected.
do with simple science.
All of it's connected, man. Like, dude, when you guys talk, you talk about just being indoctrinated and just believe in what you're told, and like never
No,
actually doing the research about anything else but your numbers and your science stuff that you think is just completely concrete. You know what I mean? You don't look outside the.
The science is concrete because it's been mulled over for hundreds of years. That's the only reason it seems concrete. It seems that way because there have been people like you guys that are skeptics that come and try to,
Have
become famous by
you,
saying, "Hey, look, I found out that the Earth isn't round."
have you ever?
No, there's hundreds and hundreds of people that have tried to make the experiments wrong, but they can't. That's why it seems concrete. It's not concrete,
Don't
but
Have
it
use
seems
blanket
that way.
terms anymore. Name the specific experiments from now on.
you? Yep. Okay. See here.
Okay, you can do them all. Like you can do the Cavendish, you can do the shadow experiment, you can do just
But we
simple
just did the
observations like
Eratosthenes one, and there's some contingency
trajectory.
on it. The Glober Blitz PhD, he's a physicist, pretty popular, and
Yeah,
Rich
I know.
Walden are hashing some things out. And I've heard some people come in and say, "Oh, Riz was debunked," blah blah blah. And I actually went and I heard them both talking about it, and they're just disagreeing over all the ways that the math can work out. But Blitz PhD himself said that the result doesn't necessarily mean that the Earth is a ball. So again, you just have to even Blitz PhD is willing to accept that there could be another model that explains our observations better. We just got to be
Well,
open to it.
I'm pretty sure we're a globe, and I doubt that would be the only flat planet in the entire solar system. We can view all the other planets in the solar
No, you
system,
That
and we
can't.
can see
It-
that they're
that's an
globes.
Not
assumption
viewing.
We can
model.
see that the moon's still around them, just
Jupiter.
like Saturn just a couple
That's
days
it.
ago.
Can you see Venus in a telescope?
Yes.
You can. You can see Venus through a telescope. But what does it look like?
Well, it's very
Point of light.
obscure. You can see the actual
It's
outlines of it,
closer
but you
than
can tell
Jupiter.
that it's a planet, not some asteroid, not some star. It's in the early morning when you can see it. You can't see Mercury unless it's during the day. And there's only certain times throughout the year you can see it. We
Okay.
just saw Saturn just a couple nights ago, and I literally can take my rifle or my scope from my rifle and look up and see the planet.
Of course, I can see Saturn and Jupiter with perfect with my telescope. I've even built a telescope, and you can see it, but you can't see anything else. So in
I
2000,
seriously doubt that we're
It's
the
not
only
true.
flat planet in our entire solar system.
So
Well,
imagine this.
Yeah, I'm also curious about that. How do you see
Our
other
model,
sides of planets? Like, how do you make the assumption that Earth is flat but other planets are round?
we're
but what
assuming
planets
that we're not
you're
assuming a
talking
space model that we're
is
suspended in an infinite space with all these massive objects floating with us. We're assuming that we're the basement of the universe and that everything else is above us, and that they're points of light, not necessarily massive celestial objects, but not necessarily not massive celestial objects either, in my opinion.
What? Man, there's so
That
much
is a
to
huge
learn about you
misalignment.
guys.
dude.
I've
There's
never
millions
actually
of them.
heard that one. That's
The
actually a
There's so many of
model
you
I've
guys.
never seen you guys talk
There's not
about.
one model that you guys
That's even
agree on.
more
Would you agree? Would you say
interesting that
that?
you believe that.
Well, I just don't.
That's
Well, we don't have the ability to go up and fully test it. So honestly, I personally am not sure
Again,
what exactly
any
to
of you guys
believe, but
rocket
it certainly
with the
looks to be more of an ethereal, more of a light effect.
I,
But again, you can't be.
so you think that I'm really just curious. You think we're the base of the universe and everything is above us?
no,
Like we're some
no.
Yeah,
kind of
like we're
tube or
That's what
what?
your theories are saying.
Or there's a dome above us.
But then how do
I don't
asteroids
know.
enter our planet?
It's just
so you're
really
referring.
interesting how that would even. I mean, I have no clue. I mean, out of all of my years of doing stuff, I have no idea how you would even
Well, we can't dig
represent the
deeper than.
physics or the movement of planets. It just that I
So
don't
the
know.
Titanic system
I
explained
They
it
don't
first
move. That I
very
mean,
well. It
they
actually had
we
the.
stay still.
Sorry, Tomfish.
I'm just saying, even the oh gosh, what was it? The ones that just got blown up. Oh god, the stone
Georgia
thing.
Guidestones.
What is it?
Meteoroid?
No, the oh my god, the fucking sorry. No. What those they just got blown up. The pillars. What are they called? The
The Georgia
humanity
Guidestones.
5,000. The guide stones. Yes. So you can look through the hole and see Polaris right there. So that's kind of weird in itself. So that everything literally
What?
spins. You can see. It stays right there. Doesn't
You
move.
can do that
Everything
on.
around it.
You can do that on the southern hemisphere for
Guide
the Southern
stones?
Cross too.
What?
You can do the same thing for the Southern Cross on the Southern Hemisphere as you can
Yeah,
do for
from
Polaris. You
South
can
America.
literally set up guide stones. Yeah, you can
I
set up guide stones on the Southern Hemisphere.
So
I
the footage of the moon
I
landing.
have to go, but I really implore you guys. I know it's good to be skeptic, and I think that's great. That is a part of science itself. But
I agree.
I just really implore you guys to do some of this
I
work
implore you to
yourself.
make yourself a
And
rocket launch it with a camera on it, and then tell me what you see.
Yeah, sure, I will. Thank you. I'll try it
Yeah,
out.
well, that's what I'm
Because
saying.
I'm also
Said
am
you've done
totally
that.
willing to do that stuff. I have been, my mentor is in NASA. I can go ask him. Why about that? Also,
Yeah.
if you're going to do a
Awesome.
little bit of homework, look up retrograde. Just look it up. Figure it out. You'll see that it's obvious. But I'm the indoctrinated one because I refuse to look up stuff. So, thank you. Have a good day.
That's how you feel.
We just don't accept reification fallacies. That's basically that's accepting the effect of something as evidence, end all be all for something. It's also basically begging the question. We've known about retrograde for a long time. The Tychonic system actually showed it, really, really well. So, and that was a geocentric universe as well. So, again, I love how we always get accused of not doing this kind of research before putting ourselves out here and being willing to be made a fool of, nobody wakes up and is like, you know
I
what, I
think
think I
you're
want to
referring to
push
the
flat Earth.
majority.
Yeah, I mean, do you have a lot of like invisible forces that you guys believe in, like electrostatic or
So you
electromagnetism,
don't
or
believe in electromagnetism or electrostatic forces?
no, I do, but they're invisible. How, I mean, shouldn't that be just as hard to believe in
No,
as gravity? For
you can see the measurable effects.
the measurable effects. So let's say that the Earth is just like a huge magnet. Then why would that be measurable if you used it that way?
Go to bed.
I mean, I suppose, but I don't think anybody's debating that the Earth has magnetism.
Okay,
I think
well,
we
okay,
all agree
I'm
on
sorry.
that.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and let y'all do a
Definitely.
last round. I wanted to keep it short tonight, but I'm going to be back on tomorrow. So I do appreciate everybody coming out. I'm going to be posting the full live to my YouTube. So if you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe over there. Please give me a follow if you like this kind of content. We do flat earth and other conspiracy topics, debate platforms, and the like. So we appreciate everybody. I'll just go
I'm
ahead
doing
and
a book.
start from the
Yeah,
bottom and work our way to the top. And just go ahead and give your
definitely.
final
Thanks for
piece.
having me. Totally, just to kind of take a page from Proto, I definitely enjoy that you guys are skeptics. You guys are keeping all science in check, and definitely love that part of the situation. But also, like Proto said, please don't deny the fact or the obvious, I guess. But anyway, thank you guys. You guys are awesome.
Absolutely. And I definitely agree with that. If we have obvious evidence and stuff to look at, then we should be willing to accept things that are, obvious and repeatable.
Yeah, I appreciate the fact that you actually do the research. But my question, though, real quick before I go, is: are you arguing from the standpoint of that you believe in this, or are you arguing in the standpoints of that side?
I
You know what
don't.
I mean? Kind of like how you do in debate class, you have to choose a side.
Oh, true. I'm basically doing. I don't believe in the globe. I think the globe is hogwash.
Okay, so you're basing it off your beliefs.
I don't believe.
So okay, I just wanted to make sure. So yeah, and
That's one way to
yeah,
put it.
so and like the last guy said, I appreciate the fact that the skepticism, keeps everything right, because science is the seeking of truth. What is the truth out there? That's what we're looking for. So questioning everything gets you to that truth, especially doing the research and finding out the truth. So I wanted to say I appreciate that, and you guys have a great night.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on, TJ Viper. Wise words. Everybody, always do your own research. Do not take anybody's word for it.
And that's a good point, that a lot of people, they just take whatever they're taught and all this crap as scripture, and that's what they base everything off. They don't even want to do research because, I already know. I already know. I don't need to do my own research because I do the research of someone who taught me about their research. So again, you know what I mean? They're not doing any research.
Absolutely. A lot of people don't challenge the assumptions that go behind the experiments either, and I always think that that's a good thing to do. Because a lot of times when people think that, we've done the experiment, you beg the question, though. You didn't really do the experiment in a way that had the movable variable testable. And so there's just a lot wrong with the way that science is being done today. But I appreciate you coming on, Tongfish. We are going to be going back live tomorrow, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to be posting the full live to the YouTube, so be sure to subscribe over there. Check it out. I only have like 120. It's a damn shame. So please go over and show that some love.
So,
Um, did you have one
real
last
quick,
thing you want to
I'm doing
say?
a book. Yeah, yes, I'm doing a book. It's called Conspiracy Circus. So it's taking a little longer than I expected, but I'll be posting about it once it's out in stores. And like I said, I'm looking through some of your content, and so I'll definitely use some of that for the book. So if you don't mind,
Yeah, I don't mind at all. Just give me the
quote you.
credits.
Cool, man. Well, it was a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on, man, as always.
Yeah, man.
All right.
All right.
I know I have some people in the guest box. I'm sorry that I didn't get to you today. Not meaning to avoid you, but just be sure to tune in tomorrow, and we'll
Have you we try not to talk over too much. It's just if you're gonna ramble the same point, you know, I have people in my family that do that. So we just try to keep it a little bit shorter and concise, easy to understand so that anybody from any side of the aisle can understand what you're talking about. And we can progress the conversation, get a lot done in an hour, hour and a half. But I appreciate everybody coming on. Be sure to tune in next time. And until then, peace.